That is a series victory for the Detroit Tigers over the weekend. That's also a season series victory against the White Sox for the season. We had a Major League debut this weekend. Fun weekend of baseball. Let's talk about it all today on Locked On Tigers.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Monday, September 11th, 2023. Thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen. Every single day, we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off of your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Alrighty, well, I hope everyone had a wonderful weekend filled with football and and whatnot. I think that's what I was going for. So the Detroit Tigers over the weekend took 2 of 3 from the Chicago White Sox, and that clinched not only a series victory over the weekend, obviously, but a season series victory over the South Side, which marks, a few people had tweeted this out. This is the first time since, 2011, 2012, that the Tigers had a winning record, rather, against every single opponent in the American League Central, against all four. And that brings up some interesting points and counterpoints about how A, impressive is that, B, meaningful is that, C, like a gauge for where this team is like overall. There's a lot of conversations around just how well we have played the American League Central. So I want to start there, and we'll obviously get into the games themselves. And I want to talk about how great I think Sawyer Gipson-Long looked, and just the fact that he got called up. We didn't even get, they did it on Saturday. They announced it on Saturday, so we didn't even have it, or Friday maybe. Regardless, we didn't have a chance to even talk about it on Friday's show. So can't wait to discuss that and the offensive performances and whatnot from the weekend. But I want to start with this because I think it's so fascinating. So the Tigers on the season are now 66 and 77. Okay, they're 11 games under 500 with 3 weeks left, 2.5, 3 weeks to go. 66 and 77. Okay, against the American League East. All right, we just lost 5 of 6 to the Yankees in a week stretch. Against the American League East, they are 7 and 25 on the year. That means that if you remove the All-American League East games from the Tigers' record this season, they would be 59 and 52. They'd be 7 games over 500 if you took out every single American League East game. Against the American League Central this year, the Tigers are a whopping 30 and 16. That is very, very good. They are almost 15 games over 500 against their division opponents. I know that this season the schedule is nerfed a little bit. You don't play your interdivision opponents as much as you used to. You still play them more than anybody else, even if it is less. So we'll gladly take it. And what that means is if you remove every single American League Central game from the schedule, the Tigers would be 36 and 61, significantly under 500. They're 11 under 500 now. That would put them at 25 games under 500? Way, way worse. All right. Now, our final exercise, this is like an elementary math class. We're going to remove every American League East and American League Central game. Okay. So the rest of baseball, we've taken away the two outliers, right? They teach you that in statistics class. At least I think. I wasn't a very good student. But if you we're going to take out the one division we're really good against and the one division we're really bad against. Against the rest of baseball, the other, 4 divisions, the Tigers are 29 and 36. So they're 11 games under 500 on the year. They're 7 games under 500 against 4 of the 6 divisions in baseball. And then those 2 remaining divisions, there's one really good and one really bad. I don't even know if this is like articulating to a point that even leads to us making a point, really. I'm not sure I brought it up to make a specific point. I guess you could say, like, oh, look, we're still way worse than the American League Central or American League East, rather. But look, we're really good against the American League Central and like this awful, awful division. We're better than these teams. And we're a middle of the pack team to everybody else. I guess you could look at it that way. It's a fascinating conversation. I think it's important to do well against your own division, but we still clearly have shortcomings against some of the better teams in baseball around the league and against the best division objectively in baseball, that is the American League East. So just a really weird kind of exercise to I don't know. I just felt that I did the math and I was going to share it on air because I spent the time and did the math on it. So interesting stuff for there. We'll talk about that more in the offseason for sure and what they need to do to improve their record against better baseball teams. But thankfully this weekend they did not play a better baseball team. It's really like I feel bad for like, and look, the Tigers organization over the last decade has certainly not been the poster child for great success in a high run organization and operation. But I mean, golly, there are few worse situations in baseball at the moment than the Chicago White Sox. That is absolutely brutal. And again, I don't say that to like be a jerk or stir the pot or anything. I genuinely feel bad. We were supposed to see this huge wave of White Sox talent that was going to dominate the division for the coming years, and they got 1 year out of it. And just now they're right back where they started. New GM, people are pissed about that. Ownership, people cannot stand Reinsdorf. It's just an absolute circus over there is really the way to put it. And the Tigers took advantage. If I'm going to come on here and complain all the time, as I do, about how every opponent can have a get right game against the Tigers, it's important for me to also give them credit when they don't allow that to happen. We said something similar last week, and so I give them a ton of credit for taking care of business. Back-to-back weekend series against the Chicago White Sox, they took 5 of 6 from them, and they're a better team than the White Sox. They absolutely should have. So good on them. Let's talk about Sawyer Gipson-Long. It was announced early on in the weekend, I can't remember if it was Friday or Saturday, that Sawyer Gipson-Long would be recalled and he would start on Sunday's game. He obviously did. The corresponding move was Brennan White getting optioned. Even like, I don't even care what your opinion on Brennan White is. Mine is higher than most people's. But even if you think Brennan White is just like he's terrible, whatever, I'd like to hear the argument on why Jose Cisnero is still in this bullpen and Brennan White now isn't. Like Brennan White, at least there is a chance that he is in this bullpen next year and in the coming years. Jose Cisnero, there is not. That chance does not exist. He will be gone in 3 weeks. I do not understand this fascination and requirement for him to be on this baseball team. It makes absolutely zero sense to me. So I'm going to continue complaining about it because I fail to see the logic behind it whatsoever. But Sawyer Gipson-Long was recalled, and that's the good news. We'll focus on the positive. That is awesome. This is somebody that I have been clamoring for to get the call up. I mean, for the everydayers, 2 weeks now, 3 weeks now, dating back into mid-August even. This dude has been really nice. He has made great adjustments this season, and his strikeout numbers have gone up. He doesn't have the lowest ERA in the world in the minors, but his strikeout numbers have gone up a lot. He's getting a lot of swings and misses. He didn't have any walks in his debut, which is awesome. I thought he looked spectacular. I thought I could not have been happier with his outing on Sunday. His changeup looked incredible. It looked like his best pitch. It was all nasty. And like the thing about it was there was movement. I'm not trying to make it sound like there wasn't any movement at all, but he was really, it felt like he was just keeping people off balance. Like the miles per hour difference between the fastball and the secondary stuff, specifically the changeup, I think is where he made a lot of his money. And I was just so impressed. We'll go a little bit more in depth on the other side of the break. But first, I got to tell y'all about our friends over at Game Time. Forget planning months in advance. Game Time has tickets and deals right up to the day of the event. You can get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and so much more. The Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. And if you can find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. The tickets are sent directly to your phone, so you don't have to dig through your wallet or purse or anything. You just go straight to your phone. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off of your first purchase. Again, terms apply. Create an account, use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 2 of Locked On Tigers. Appreciate you all for tuning in, making us your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. We'll be back tomorrow. Not sure what we're going to talk about yet. The Tigers have an off day on Monday. But we'll find something, and we will have a show. So maybe we can catch up on some news. There's some out. I don't know. Maybe we can start off-season stuff. Maybe we start off. I mean, we're only like 2.5, 3 weeks away. We might as well. We'll figure it out. Let's keep talking about Sawyer Gipson-Long, though. Made his major league debut. Like I said, the changeup was really, really filthy. 4 swings and misses on his changeup, 24% CSW percentage, and the most thrown pitch. Now, that's not a super high called strikes whiffs percentage there, but he only had 5 balls put in play off of the changeup. I was very, very impressed. The movement really got me. The slider, 42% CSW percentage, and the sinker, 47%. That's 2 of his 3 most thrown pitches that over 40% of the time he threw them, they were either a called strike or a swinging miss strike. I was very impressed with the sequencing. I think that's something that Feder really wanted to address immediately. I think that's like Feder's specialty, is utilizing pitch sequencing as best as possible. And I feel like he really got a hold of him early on, and they executed the game plan incredibly well. Only 13 four-seam fastballs in this ball game, but got up to 94, even 95 miles an hour. Then the sinker sat around 92, 93 miles an hour. So I like it. And I enjoy the fact that he has the swing and miss changeup and the swing and miss slider. And then on top of that, he has the pitch to contact sinker. And then let me know if you were this before. All roads are then back to the four-seam fastball. What kind of pitch is that going to be? It would not surprise me. We talked about this with some other people as well. If the four-seam fastball usage started to kind of creep up a little bit in future starts. But as a first major league start, really as any start, this was great. I'm so excited. 5 innings, 4 hits, 2 earned runs, no walks, and 5 strikeouts, 2 in the first inning. He was great. And like I said, the difference in velocity between 95 mile an hour, 94 mile an hour fastball sinker, and then down to, 86 mile an hour changeup and 83 mile an hour slider is lethal with the amount of movement that he had. Beyond impressed. We can move on. I don't want to keep talking in circles, but very excited for him to be in the rotation for the remainder of the year too. Again, this was there was any pitcher in the entire organization, literally the entire organization, that I wanted to see called up for September. It was Sawyer Gipson-Long. And it was not only vindicating, but it was great to see, because on the offensive side, we haven't seen the top hitting prospects that everybody wants to see. And so to see that on the pitching side was at least nice. Let's move on to Reese Olson in this weekend. It was fantastic. I mean, you want to talk about a good start. Reese Olson had a no-hitter through, 6 1/3, I believe, ended up giving up a home run, which would be the final pitch he would throw. Just an absolute cookie. The last pitch he threw could not have been more right down the middle. And so unfortunately, he leaves the game with a blemish on the scorecard, but he was phenomenal. And I think that the steps forward that Reese Olson has taken this year are remarkable, dog. Like, I cannot stress enough how worried I was when he got called up. Like I did not believe in the fastball at all. I thought the command was questionable at best. I was nervous and I wasn't a huge believer. And he has completely shoved that in my face, and I could not be happier about it. The fastball we talk about pretty much every outing. It's still a somewhat, I don't want to call it a concern, but it is, the heights that he will reach as a starter are pretty much reliant on how effective that fastball can be. But goodness gravy, man, that slider is, I would argue that the Reese Olson slider is one of the best pitches in the entire Tigers organization right now. Like just on a pure effectiveness level. I'm not saying it's guaranteed the best, but it's in the conversation. If you were to break down, like, okay, like the Erod cutter, or like the, you know what I mean? You went through either the Scooble fastball or the Scooble slider or whatever, and you went through every single pitch. I think Reese Olson's slider is legitimately one of the best in the Tigers org right now. And yeah, the command has certainly been revelation, might even be the word. It's certainly been a huge step in the right direction there since becoming a major leaguer as well. I was super impressed with the changeup. I want to see more changeup sinker tunneling, and he did it in this outing. But like, that's a great way when you don't have a swing and miss fastball. That's a great way to keep people off balance. The sinker moves down a little bit as a fastball. The changeup obviously drops off a table for Reese Olson. It moves much more than the sinker, but if you tunnel both of them low, bottom of the strike zone, really, I don't even care which corner you hit. I think that can be a pretty effective thing. And then if you have them off balance, you just go to the bender. You just go to the that incredible slider that he has. And I think that you can get a pretty darn good pitcher. And I think we're starting to see that lately. I think he's only given up 3 earned runs in his last 3 outings. He's been stellar. He's been stellar. So good for him. I think this offseason is going to beg some questions about how prominent of a role is Reese Olson going to have on this baseball team next year. Is it going to be that Alex Faedo, like multi-inning reliever / spot starter, like Tyler Alexander role, right, when he's healthy? Or is he a pure reliever? Or have his last 3 starts really convinced you, like, look, this dude might just be in the rotation on opening day next year? I think that's a conversation we'll have. We got a few starts left this year. We're not going to jump the gun, but I think that's a conversation to have this winter for sure. And one that we will certainly have on the show. Tarek Skubal started this weekend as well. He was great. Changeup, I thought, was working fantastic. And he's so good. He's so good. So don't have too much really to say in depth about Tarek Skubal, but when the command is good, when the fastball command specifically is good, Tarek Skubal is good. I thought in this outing he did just that. As far as the bullpen goes, Alex Lang has really improved. And if you just look at the last month, it's a night and day different than like that June and July stretch he went on. I know he gave up the home run was that against New York? But even that, like, he didn't have any walks in that outing. Home runs are going to happen at some point in today's day and age, like eventually. And so I don't view that, like, if he was giving up a ton of homers, I'd view it as a problem. But like, even when he was awful, he wasn't giving up a boatload of homers, right? Like, that's not a very high number on the season. So if you count that for what it is just, he made a bad pitch, whatever. The last month has been a huge turnaround, and it's just finding the strike zone. Golly. And clearly we're not going to take that for granted because he went 2 months without being able to throw the ball in the strike zone literally at all. But it has been a super nice thing to see. I still firmly believe that Alex Lang has all of the ability to be a long-term reliever on this team. It's just a matter of whether he puts it all together well enough to be like a high leverage, like 8th and 9th inning guy on a good team, or whether the lack of command is going to kind of cap him off as being like a really nasty, I don't know, like first out of the bullpen, like 6th inning middle reliever type. And I think that's more the conversation than, like, is he a major league pitcher or not? Like, clearly his stuff is disgusting. So good to see him find the strike zone for the last few weeks. And like, I'm sure that he'll, go out there and walk 3 his next outing just because I said that. But regardless, we have a pretty sizable sample size lately of him walking far fewer hitters, and that's a good sign. That's really all I had. I mean, Miguel Diaz, I still has a 0 ERA, by the way. I love Miguel Diaz. big fan of it. Tyler Holton gave up some runs again, ERA back over 2, but went back out there on Sunday and threw a blank. Will Vest, I think, continues to look good, which is great because I was really nervous for a while. We talked about that the other day. Don't have too much else to add on the bullpen front outside of the Alex Lang conversation. Let's get to the bats this weekend. Okay, not a very great offensive performance. Have a little bit of defense to talk about as well. Then we'll talk about some playoff baseball happening in the Tigers organization. We'll do that right after I tell y'all about our friends over at Sleeper. MLB playoffs are just around the corner. There you go. Which means the clock is ticking on your chance to 100 times your cash on daily fantasy baseball. Baseball has never been more exciting than it is now with studs like Acuna Jr., Mookie Betts, Shohei Ohtani, obviously. You can pick more or less on stats for these stars like home runs, hits, strikeouts, and more for up to 100 times your payout on Sleeper. Get your picks right, and you could win big. Sleeper is the best. They are flying up charts. They are one of the most used sports apps in the country at this point. I don't know too many people that participate in the like daily or league fantasy games and aren't familiar and or just straight up use Sleeper. And the fact that they are in the daily fantasy game now just makes it all that much more convenient. So use promo code LOCKEDON and you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Check out Sleeper today. All right, everybody, welcome back. Your third and final segment of Locked On Tigers. Appreciate you all for tuning in, making us your first listen every day. Let's talk about the offense. So, this was kind of a snooze fest of an offensive weekend outside of like 2 people. They scored 6 runs in 3 games. That's terrible. That's like awful. If you average 2 runs a game throughout the season, you'd have the worst offense ever. So that is not good for a weekend series, but they leave with the series victory, so we're not going to complain too terribly much. Just really, really solid pitching in 2 of 3 games. Well, really 3. I just want to point out, I posted this as well, how remarkable it is. How many teams do you know that could have a no-hitter going into the 7th inning and get blown out? Baseball Reference considers a blowout any run differential more than 5 runs. So, like, this is technically speaking, air quotes, a blowout on Friday. And we literally were no-hitting the White Sox through 6 1/3. It's impressive. It's impressive ineptitude. It really is. But again, they turn it around and won. Not going to complain too much. More just joking around. But like, it is kind of ridiculous in the same breath. Offensively, the shutout on Friday was terrible. I thought that Torkelson had a good weekend. He is hitting now with runners in scoring position, has a few clutch hits in the month of September. Went all of August. He went, 0 for 21 with runners in scoring position. In September, I believe he is 3 for 9 with a walk in there as well. So certainly much better there early on in the month. Well, September 10th. What is that? A third of the way through a month. I guess we're not super early on, but nice to see him actually come through in a couple of those situations. We'll gladly take it. Kerry Carpenter continues to just be a hitting machine. He does nothing but hit. It's so fun to watch him in the batter's box. Andre Lipsius with some hits over the weekend, a couple of hits on Sunday. Still just like, it doesn't feel like there's a lot of power behind the bat. Like if the barrel lands on the bat and he can throw it out there and hit it flush and hit it on the sweet spot, obviously it's going to go, but it doesn't, I don't have confidence when he swings the bat that it's going to be hard hit. So that's like continues to be something that I'll keep an eye on with Lipsius. Quickly defensively, 1, Parker Meadows continues to be amazing. But 2, Lipsius at third on Sunday, there were, I want to say 3 plays in which if a third baseman with a cannon of an arm was out there, at least 2 of those are probably made, and he didn't make any of them. Not saying this to criticize him, just saying that that's probably a limitation on if you're one of those people that's like, oh, I think Andre Lipsius might be like the everyday third baseman of the future. That probably has some limitations on that. In my brain, Lipsius is like This is probably going to piss people off just because I've said this about a lot of people, but it's objectively true. We have a lot of them. Probably a utility guy, like probably somebody that if everything works out for him, he can be a solid enough defender at third, a solid enough defender at second, maybe even play some short if you desperately need it. But mostly, make his living at first, second, and third in the infield, and isn't going to strike out a lot and is going to get decent walk numbers and not hit for power. I think that's the profile of him, and there is value in that. It's just a matter of if he can make adjustments at third base. I think that would go a long way for an organization that has a wide opening at third base. It would go a long way if he could adjust some of the defensive. It's hard to just say get a better arm. That's kind of at some point that's something you either have or you don't. But just something I noticed, the arm strength isn't necessarily elite there, and it kind of was exposed on Sunday. As far as back to purely hitting, Parker Meadows has had a rough week. I think he didn't have a hit all week. Has gone on a little bit of a skid here over his last, I want to say it's 15 or 19 even, and went hitless on Sunday again as well. Unless he starts striking out a boatload, I'm not going to freak out too terribly much, just because that is the biggest. And he's had a couple of hard hit balls. He had a line drive hit up the middle on Sunday that the pitcher just threw his glove out and got. It's not like he's going out there and K-ing every single AB. I still believe that he can be a solid hitter, and there is some power in there. We know that. It's just a matter of some more solid contact consistently, and then consistently lifting the baseball, but not lifting it too much. Baseball is a difficult game. But it's one of those things where until he starts striking out a boatload, I'm not going to freak out too much. And I've been the biggest, worrier about his strikeout rate at the major league level out there. I've been talking about it since before we even called him up. But that hasn't really spiked too dramatically, even amidst this kind of slump that he's been on. So we'll keep an eye on it, but something that's worth noting for sure. Besides that, Zach McKinstry was fine this weekend. With 3 weeks left in the season, it's hard for me to do deep dives on a lot of these 4A or super utility type of players who aren't going to be I'm starting to transition into winter and off season mode. And so we can break down Andy Ibanez if you want, but you know what I mean? And Zach McKinstry and Zach Short, etc. But at this point in the season, I think people are more interested in the players that they know are going to have prominent roles on the team next year as well. So yeah, not a great weekend. They went, I think, 4 for 19 with runners in scoring position over the weekend. They went 0 for 1 on Friday. 0 for 1. Just terrible all around. Then they went 1 for 9 on Saturday, and then 3 for 9 on Sunday is a nice step in the right direction. That's much better. Torkelson obviously helping that total. But yeah, 1 for 10 with RISP on Friday and Saturday. So not great. Let's talk about, that's it for the weekend. Not the most eventful weekend in the world outside of Sawyer Gipson-Long and Reese Olson, but glad to see them walk away with 2 wins. They should have. They are the better team. I would have been disappointed if I came on here and they had not. And also at home. Round of applause, right? Oh my goodness. They won a home series. I couldn't even tell you the last time they did that. So organizationally, the Flying Tigers are in the playoffs, and that's cool for a few reasons. One, it's just cool that any level of the Tigers organization making the postseason is fun. But it's very cool because the Flying Tigers have some of the highly regarded prospects in the organization and 2 hitters that were literally drafted this year that are prominent fixtures in the lineup. Kevin McGonigal and obviously Max Clark. Clark has gotten off to a little bit of a slower start since getting promoted to Lakeland, but him and McGonigal both, I saw a lineup the other day. I think they hit 1 and 2. You know what I mean? They're going to be prominent parts of that lineup. And so it's cool to see them get a taste of some postseason baseball. That'll be fun. It'll be something we will certainly keep an eye on here and kind of update you throughout. But yeah, it just felt like that was a fun thing to kind of bring up. And the McGonagall's been hitting, and that's fun. So good for them. We will, like I said, we'll keep an eye on that. They went 42-22 in the second half. The Flying Tigers. It's a heck of a record. That's a heck of a second half record, especially again when you consider that several players from the draft were on the second half team and not the first half team, obviously. So very cool. Just want to end by talking about the schedule remaining. Okay, so the Tigers schedule the remainder of the year. I forget who it was, but one publication said it was the easiest remaining schedule in baseball. And really, you can't blame the take. They play the Dodgers next week. And outside of that, okay, they have a 3-game set against the Dodgers next week, Monday through Wednesday. Outside of that, their remaining teams on the schedule are as follows in order: Reds, Angels, Dodgers, A's, Royals, Guardians. I think there is a very real argument that is the easiest final 3 weeks in baseball. I think I saw the article back at the beginning of September, and I think it was like easiest September in baseball. But yeah, we played the White Sox twice, and the Yankees aren't good. So like, yeah, probably still holds. And we talked about this at the end of August. Like this is a month where you don't have to like just kind of hobble to the finish line and go out on a sad note. Like you can do damage. You can give some kids opportunities and at bats against some poor teams and some poor pitching. You can put Sawyer Gipson-Long and Reese Olson in positions where they are going to go up against offenses that aren't fantastic. Get some confidence building, get them to try some things. Like this is, I know that I'm a nerd, and like I know that the majority of the public views September baseball, in which the Tigers are well out of it, as like I'm not going to prioritize this. I'm not going to watch it. I see my own numbers. That, you know what I mean? Like they obviously go down at this time of year when your team's not in the playoff hunt. But like they're legitimately, I feel like there's still so much that we're playing for and that we still need to figure out before the winter. And the fact that the Tigers have the opportunity to do that against teams that are objectively worse than them in a lot of these remaining series is, yeah, we could actually end on a fun note. And that's something we don't say too terribly often over the last 8 or 9 years. We'll end the show by just saying Miggy had some right knee, I believe it was, soreness, was held out of the lineup on Sunday. I think they are going to do whatever they can to just make sure that he's healthy the last like 2 weeks, week of the season. So we have an off day today as you're listening to this. We have an off day on Monday. So obviously he's not playing then. Wouldn't surprise me if he didn't play much in Cincinnati. I think, again, they just want him to be able to play as many, if not all, of that last homestand as possible because we have a huge road stand where from the 15th to the 24th is all road games. Then we end the season on a 6-game homestand. And I think the plan is probably to play him for all 6 of those games. So whatever they got to do to make that happen is what they will do. All right. Thanks for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. Free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Shout out to the everydayers. We'll be back tomorrow talking about something. I hope it's good. I'll see you then. Peace and love. Going to therapy's dope. I'll catch you all tomorrow, baby. Go Tigers.